Welcome to the Bardic Inspiration Podcast. I'm your host, Brad the Bard, and today I have the MMA godfather from PA, Nick Masington, and we are here in his lovely, outstandingly, state-of-the-art fighting academy, Rat Pack Fighting Systems, and a giant shout-out to our sponsor. If you guys like creative writing, horror, and all of that good stuff, check out his link in the description. What's going on, Nick?
Not much, my friend. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Yo, so let me ask you, I have a question. I want to know who, in your opinion, is the greatest of all time MMA fighter? Let's start this off hot, baby.
I think the obvious and the easiest is John Jones is clearly the best MMA fighter in the world right now. Does that make him the greatest? Technically, probably. If you look at his record, if you look at the people he's beaten, if you look at the trail of bodies he's left in his wake, probably the best. People will argue, of course, that because of his personal issues, he can't be the greatest. I don't know. But, I'm an old school guy, so for me, you got to look at guys that create stuff, that take it to the next level,
Definitely.
And I think he created a lot of stuff. But going back for me, I think he's got, I think if you're gonna pick a greatest, that's got to be your guy. It just has to be.
Yeah.
People talk about Khabib and whatnot. Yeah, he's great. He's impressive. He's undefeated, etc. But the longevity's not there. And the list of names isn't there. He's got a couple big names and then a couple of mediocre fighters on his roster. So
yeah,
Jones just beat everybody who's anybody. And did it in convincing fashion. So, and we'll see what he does at heavyweight. But I think that's probably my answer.
What did you think of the fight with Gaethje recently? Like you just mentioned Khabib. I thought that was a pretty epic.
It was very impressive. Gaethje's a tough kid, but Gaethje to me always was performing above his skill level. I don't think he's the most technical. I like the kid from what I see of him and know of him, but I don't think he's he's not a George St. Pierre. He's not a Conor McGregor. He's not a physical freak. He's just a really, really tough kid who was able to take a lot of hits, and I think Khabib is a freak. Yeah. So you've got your good fighters and you've got your freaks. Yeah. And that's I said on an interview the other week, people have that, it's like high school wrestling parents love to have those slogans, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's bullshit, man. Absolute bullshit. If you've got that kind of natural talent, the guys that I'm talking about, you don't have to work that hard. You don't have to work as hard as everybody else and you'll still beat them. Yeah. Just plain and simple. And there aren't that many people that fall into the freak category. But look at Jones. 3 brothers, all professional athletes. He's now, 240 pounds? Bulked up, and that's just not normal human being stuff. Yeah. So I think Gaethje's a normal human being who fought really, really great.
Just really.
It's like Frankie Edgar. Yeah. Great fighter, one of the greatest in history, but a normal guy. Yeah. Physically not,
a specimen.
Yeah, just not a freak. Yeah. And the freaks are something different. No doubt. And there was a lot of them out there now. It's like any other sport. We're in a young sport. So, for instance, if you take a comparable sport, take bodybuilding, for instance, back when Schwarzenegger was around, was Schwarzenegger the greatest physical specimen in the world? No. Freakish in some ways, but not a lot. But what you've seen since then is now the freaks have come out. Oh, yeah, and that's the same thing with MMA. When MMA started, there weren't these top level athletes in the business. Yeah. Now you've got guys that could be playing pro ball or doing other pro sports that are going into MMA. Yeah. And that's where it gets scary.
Yeah, it gets dicey for sure. What do you think of Silva's comeback here? He looks like he's on a decline right now from what everyone's saying, man.
Anderson?
Scary stuff. Yeah, Anderson Silva.
I think it's a shame that he's still fighting. Yeah. I feel bad for him. My guess is that it's the money. Or the inability to let go. They say, oh, well, he looked good last time, but he got knocked out again. And that's at that age, that can't be helpful.
Yeah, man. It only gets worse, right?
Look at Big Daddy Goodrich going back to the old school time. I mean, he's having all kinds of problems. You know, what is it, the CTE that they're talking about with the football players?
Dude.
Well, if you're thinking these football players are suffering from it, the only reason we haven't seen it that much in MMA is our history's not that long.
It's a young sport.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, you know, they're not 10, 20 years out, but Goodrich, who I happen to, you know, like a lot and think is a neat guy and always a great fighter to watch, he was one of the pioneers. And now he's not an old guy. I think he's younger than me, and he's suffering. I mean, he's suffering. You know, look at Mark Coleman, another just giant of the game. He's suffering with the heart issues and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think long term, to see a guy like Silva come in and he put on a decent performance, but in the end he got KO'd at a later stage of life, and I think that's all going to come back to haunt these guys, and I feel bad for them for that because we know what's going to happen with these guys. They're going to have cognitive issues down the road just because they stayed in too long. And maybe it's ego, but I suspect it's money. I mean, I think it's probably money. Did they make a lot? Yeah.
Yeah. But,
you know, what happens with these guys that make a lot of money in a short period of time is they spend it.
Yeah.
And then the lifestyle's there, and it's just not that easy.
They scale the paycheck to paycheck.
I had a somewhat of a mentor early in my career who told me very early on. I can remember I was applying for a job at a different firm, and I remember saying, gee, if I can only get that job, everything would be great, because look, I'm making $20,000, they're paying $30,000, so I'll have like all this extra money. And they said, no, you'll never have any extra money, Nick, because as you go, your expenses will increase. Well, here it is 30 years later. And, you know, back then I was worried about paying my mortgage. Now I have 7, you know, I was worried about making my car payment. Now I have 5.
Yeah.
So I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. Paychecks are bigger, but the expenses are bigger, you know, and that's how they are. You know, you buy the
Bentleys.
The rap star who gets the #1 hit. Well, look at MC Hammer. I mean, there's your great example from real world. Man had a hit record, made millions of dollars, built one of the biggest mansions on earth, had a posse of 300 people, and then the next year didn't sell and couldn't pay for it. So he went bankrupt, and it's a sin, you know? So I think that's what happens with some of these, you know, the difference with MC Hammer is you can go out and maybe sing a song or do an infomercial. With Anderson Silva, you got to fight.
Yeah.
It's the only thing you know.
Yeah, definitely.
You got to fight, you know, you got to fight.
What do you think is like a reasonable age to retire to prevent like some of this stuff from what you've seen?
I don't know that there's an age. I mean, Randy Couture is, of course, the guy everybody points to.
Yeah. What's he like, over 40?
He was, he's fighting into his 40s and killing people.
Crazy.
But again, okay, that's one guy. You know, you always have in any endeavor, and I'll relate it to MMA and grappling and whatnot, you always have that one guy who everybody looks to and goes, yeah, but he did it. You know, in comedy, you had Rodney Dangerfield, who made it big at like 56 years old or something, or 55 years old. People are like, well, I'm not too old because look at, okay, that was one guy.
Yeah, he's an outlier.
You know, all these young kids quitting their jobs to go train grappling. But look at Gordon. Okay, yeah, look at Gordon. Go look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Do you see a difference? I do. And if you don't, then you probably should get a new mirror. But yeah, okay, one guy made a fortune. God bless him. Smart kid, marketed it well, very talented. That's one guy. I'm not sure that you should put all of your eggs in the basket where one guy made money.
Yeah.
You know, it's just different. So I don't think there is an age. But I being my age, and I just turned, well, I didn't just turn, I'm 55.
Yeah.
I train, I don't know, 3-4 days a week. I think I lift three days a week. I keep myself in reasonably good shape, etc. I'm hoping I don't look 55. I certainly don't act 55.
Yeah. If you asked me how old you were, I would not have said 55.
I appreciate that. My wife and my wife's a year older than me, and you know, she looks very young as well. We've got but I can tell you, it's different now. It's different. I mean, it's harder.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because I go to gyms and you shake hands. They're like, oh, I'm the old guy in the gym. Really? How old are you, bud? 36. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. So you're 20 years younger than I am. And like, yeah, well, it's harder in your 30s. Well, it is harder in your 30s than in your 20s. And it's harder in your 40s than in your 30s. And I can tell you it's harder in your 50s than it is in your 40s. And my guys here are terrific. They understand. I think they understand. And I think they appreciate that. I was never good at this stuff. I've been good at the business end of it. I think I've been very good at the business end of it. And I think I've produced some of the greatest competitors in the area for a long, long time and continue to do so. But I was way better than I am now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that. I can tell you that. I was way better I didn't start training until I was 38 years old or 36 years old. And simply because the sport didn't exist. So I started training in my mid to late 30s. But man, I was way better in my mid to late 30s than I am at 55.
Yeah.
And that's not from lack of trying. It's just the physicality's not there.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Age is a factor that you can't ignore. That's definitely a certainty. So let me ask you, like, when you got your start and everything, how did you? It seems like you're a pretty well calculated guy. Like I don't need to have spoke with you to kind of see the way that you kind of built the empire that is this building itself. You know what I mean? So you have like your own lawyer firm as well as this gym, and it's all like built into under one roof. That was a fortuitous event. Yeah. How did I make that happen? Yeah. Like how did you come up with the idea that you could make it a realization?
I didn't. I'd love to take credit for that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a life lesson in this. One of the most devastating things in life that I can think of, and I never thought about this before it happened. You always think of death. Yeah. Cancer, car accident, what have you. You think of these things. Most of us don't think about fire. You hear a siren go by, and I'll bet unless you've had a life experience, you don't even blink an eye.
Yeah.
And up until the time I was 51 years old, sirens would go by. Christ, I lived in South Philadelphia for 7 years, man. Yeah. Sirens were 24 hours a day. Yeah. I mean, you just got used to it. 4 or 5 years ago, my world burned down in one afternoon. My office, my wife and I bought a building 3 doors down from here. My personal law office was in there. All my files, my business, my computers, etc.
It was an office that hosted multiple businesses?
It was an office that had 2 businesses. It had a hairdresser. It had my law office. I have 3 offices, but that was my personal office.
That was like your HQ.
Yeah, that was for me, that one. And 4 apartments. And one day, a beautiful day in May, I'll never forget it because we had just closed on a building down in Bethlehem for a new office, and I got a call because I always stocked my buildings with my fighters and my people. So if there were apartments in my buildings, they always went to my fighters first or friends. This one time, I let one person in that I didn't know, and one of my fighters called me and said, there's smoke coming out of apartment 2. 5 seconds later, my other fighter who lived across the hall called and said, there's smoke coming out of apartment number 2. By the time I got up here from Bethlehem, the entire place was in flames and my building was under gallons and gallons of water and whatnot. So I lost everything.
Damn, dude.
Lost the building, lost the office, lost my computers, lost my files, just lost everything. So, of course, that was the most devastating day of my life in many ways. It ended up, and this is where I think the life lesson comes in, being the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Because what happened was I didn't have enough insurance to rebuild there, so I had to look for a new building. Well, this is 4 doors away, and this building was here, and it was available, and I'd never even noticed it before. Ended up buying this building with this space for the law office. So my law office went from 800 square feet to 3,700 square feet. It went from old wood paneling with, deer, wildlife murals in the 3x3 bathroom to what you've seen. I mean, it's a gorgeous office.
State of the art. Yeah,
it is state of the art. So, long story short, the gym was 4 blocks up the road, and it was a huge gym. I mean, we had a weight room, we had a cage room, we had an 18 by 18 boxing ring. I had showers and men's lockers, women's lockers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the place was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Building was a piece of shit.
Move your mic up here.
What's that?
Move your mic closer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The building was a piece of shit when I bought it, but I bought it because it was a karate school that we took over, and I bought it for the fun of having it. And,
the gym that you're
for running the
yeah,
business. Yeah. So when I got this building, this unit that we're sitting in now, I rented to a third party for a while, and ultimately my son D-Boy and I had a conversation, and it was one of those conversations where I said, "Look, bud, I'm getting tired. You got to start really taking over this gym more." And he just looked at me and said, "I don't want this gym, Dad." And I said, "Well, what do you mean you don't want this gym?" He goes, "You're here all the time fixing something, the plumbing, the roof, the tenants, the this." He goes, "I don't want this." And I said, "Well, what do you want?" And he cross trains with the boys down at 10th Planet Bethlehem. And this was, I think, back in their prior gym. He goes, "I want what they have." I go, "Well, they have a room with mats." And I wasn't being condescending, but that's what they had. They had still what they had.
It's not so much different.
They have a room with mats. And he goes, "That's what I want." Because I want a room with mats. So we came down the hall because he worked for me at the law office. And I opened this room up, and this did not look like this at the time. And he said, "This is what I want." So we went from, I want to say 6,000 square feet to 1,200, and ultimately sold that building, made a decent buck on it, and put quite a bit of money into what you see here.
Yeah,
because
I can tell.
Yeah, it's small. Yeah, I mean, anybody that knows mats knows that these Fuji mats are not cheap.
Definitely
but when you
not.
start going with the wall logos, the custom wall mats, and I think we've got 3 logos. And my deal was, because if you interviewed D-Boy as a germaphobe, we'll get rid of everything. So we went from puzzle mats. We went from probably 35-year-old puzzle mats on top of old carpeting to these.
Yeah, the old carpeting.
We threw out the bags. We threw out the pads. We threw out the gloves. We threw out everything. Everything just went in the trash. And everything in this place, from the lockers to the benches to the mats to the bags to the picture frames, every single thing in this place was brand new. February of last year when we opened. Nothing had been used or touched before. The desks, the computer, everything brand new. The only thing that's not absolutely brand new is that cage wall, but all the padding is new and everything else. The frame and structure stuff. Even the racks for the heavy bags. We have 4 heavy bags here. They were all custom made by my friend Joe Rodriguez, who also made my cage in my old place. Does amazing work with metal, and so everything was custom and cool. So that happened, and then when one of my fighters moved out of an apartment upstairs, D-Boy came to me and said, "I'd like to take the apartment upstairs."
Yeah.
So now,
you don't live here though.
I don't live here. I don't live here. I live down the street. But so yeah, it became basically a utopia of my office where he works, my gym where he teaches, and his apartment upstairs. He never has to leave the building if he doesn't want to. So I can't tell you it was a plan. I can't tell you I set out to do it.
Yeah.
But I took what was, like I said, a very, very bad incident.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened. So,
yeah.
I say that to young people all the time, and I know people get tired of hearing my bullshit sometimes, but it's not bullshit. Take what happens and roll with it.
Yeah.
Just 3 weeks, just to give you another example. 3 weeks ago, one of my partners was hiring a paralegal. Well, he hired one, and she took the job. Yay, champagne corks. Next day she said, "Never mind, my old firm offered me more money." He hired a second one. She took the job. 3 days later, she said, "Never mind, I'm not taking it." So he was devastated. Yeah. He just hired one finally, and he said, "You know what, Nick? I think I got the right one. She was better than the rest, and she fits in better." I said, "That's why shit happens, Yeah. I'm not a religious guy by any means, but I do think shit happens sometimes for a reason. And even if it doesn't happen for a reason, make it a reason.
Yeah, it's interesting, like what you're bringing up here. Like I can obviously, tell my tale about how, like, the quarantine situation, like, got me out of my old job and everything. But this conversation I was having with a friend of mine is like I don't believe in luck, right? I don't I think it's like chalking things up to luck. That's not in a poker game. That's some stupid shit. You're discrediting a lot of things that go into that.
Right.
Because what it is, I think luck's more of like an equation, right? It's opportunity times how prepared you are to seize the day.
I agree with you to an extent. There is luck. I never got any of it. I mean, that's just quite right. Look, and I'll use old references because I'm old. If you're JFK Jr., you're lucky. If you're JFK Jr., you're born into one of the richest families in the world. You look like a movie star. You're relatively intelligent, et cetera, and your life until you die in a plane crash because you're an idiot, your life is charmed. It just is. That's lucky.
No doubt.
Being born JFK Jr. is lucky. To a great degree, having healthy children is lucky. To some degree, it's not, because it's genetics as well.
Yeah.
And because, who you marry and what you have. But that's lucky. It is offensive when people say, oh, you're lucky. You have this.
Yeah.
Dude, look at this fucking face.
I'm a hard
There's nothing lucky
dude,
here, man.
Dude,
Yeah,
same,
If you think I walk in looking like this and people just open their doors and they say, "Oh, Nick, here's opportunity." Come on. Everything you have, and on the flip side of luck is entitlement. People have an entitlement attitude.
Yeah.
So many people today, especially young guys coming up, have this attitude, "Why I should have this."
Why do you think it's so much different now than what it was, maybe in your heyday?
I don't know. I think because things are so easily obtainable now, and there's such instant gratification.
Yeah, the
in
culture,
world.
right, is so tuned to that.
And I tell you, it's a flip side. And the example I always use, you're going to think this is a weird, but you're a pretty in-depth kid, and you're into a lot of things, so you might appreciate this. You love music?
I love music.
I love music. I love weird music, strange music. Maybe not weird and strange. I'm a big Broadway fan or whatnot.
Yeah.
I also love cities. I hate beaches. Can't stand beaches. My wife loves the beach. My wife wants to have a home on the beach, and I've promised her that within the next 2 years we will somewhere, but that's because I love my wife dearly.
Yeah.
I'd never see a beach in my life. I don't care. I love cities.
You like the mountains? I mean, Palmerton's like a very mountainous area. Like the landscapes here are
I'm
beautiful.
talking about if you said, Nick, you can go anywhere in the world on vacation. I'm going to a city.
You're going to Philly.
My wife picks Miami. I pick New Orleans.
Oh, man.
My wife picks this. I pick Chicago. Yeah, this. I mean, I love to visit cities. European cities I haven't been to, but I'm saying my next one I want to do is I either want to do Nashville, or I want to do Austin, Texas, or Dallas or something. I just love cities.
For music, Nashville's a great choice.
So,
I definitely want to get down there sometime.
When I was younger, one of the things I loved to do was when I would go to a new city is I would immediately go to the record stores and look for those albums I couldn't find anywhere else. Because there was no anything else. So I would spend years looking for an album. And when I found it, it was like, oh my God, look at this, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you push a fucking button.
Yeah, eBay.
It's on my front porch the next day. I mean, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. Hell, you heard a song on the radio back in my day, and you'd have to listen to the radio for the next 3 years to find out what it was, because it didn't come up on the little screen, because there was no little screen.
Definitely.
And it was like, what was that song? Oh my God, I hear it again, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'd have to go to the mall and go to the 45 rack and buy it, et cetera, and bring it home. And you got through. Now, I'm hearing this song. It's this song. Let me push a button. Boom.
Yeah.
Now it's here. I love it. But what it creates, I think, with the younger folks is this just, if I want something, I should have it immediately.
Yeah, I mean,
shouldn't have to work for it.
To further go down that, like the rabbit hole of like the significance of that too, you just told me a story about how you would hunt for these records. That's intriguing, right? I don't give a shit that, oh yeah, I found that record for $60 on eBay. That's not a story.
Right.
Right. There's no endeavor in there.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting about that except the record.
And I can remember the albums that I spent the longest time looking for. I still have them. One was the movie soundtrack to Jesus Christ Superstar. It took me 11 years to find it.
Where did you find it?
Found it in a store in Baltimore, Maryland. A little record store in Baltimore, Maryland. I found that. And it was just, it was like, oh my God, it was the Holy Grail. So here I am spending years working for, a $10 LP. Whereas, these days it's like, boom, just right there.
Yeah.
It's just different. I'm not saying it's better. It's just different. It's just a different work ethic.
Yeah. And I could see how, there might be some resentment even there, because some people don't appreciate what comes before the product. Like kind of to draw a parallel with that instant gratification thing, right? Everyone wants to get to the top of the mountain. No one wants to go through the journey a lot of the time.
Well, that's true.
I find that as a pretty common thing with people, maybe definitely my age, but younger especially.
And that same relates to this business. I mean, this business, I'll tell you, has been in many ways harder. I was building parallel businesses. I always say that, you know, if you remember the old movie Dead Poet Society.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
dude.
terrific movie.
Timeless classic.
And I hate Robin Williams as a comedian, but I love him as an actor. It was just a great performance. And he says, and I'm paraphrasing to some degree, he says, medicine, law, etc. These are noble endeavors and necessary to sustain life. But art and music are what you stay alive for. My life has always been that what I do down the hall is necessary to sustain life. What I do in this room is what I stay alive for. And until I found MMA at the age of about 35, I was really lost. From the time I graduated law school at about, how old was I? I don't know, 20 something. Graduated in 90. So 30 years, so I was 25.
Yeah.
Until I discovered this business, I really was lost because I just was in a world of people that I couldn't relate to. And I didn't look like them.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I don't look like them.
Yeah, or act
like them. And I was just, I was just miserable. I found this and I said, okay, now I can do that forever, because it will help me do this. And then we got into this business, and this business was harder to build than that one. I met more adversity and more trials and tribulations building this business, from which I make no money, mind you. This is not a money-making venture.
Yeah.
I don't make a dime, never have.
It's a passion project.
Yeah, it's a love, and it's a family project. But it's been crazy, this business. I mean, talk about cutthroat, talk about stomping on the next guy's back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Christ, lawyers are nothing compared to MMA guys. Jesus God, these guys, some of these guys are animals. And
on the business side, you mean?
On the business side, I mean, going back, I mean, I just had on Saturday, I had Jeff Reese in from up in Scranton, and he did a seminar and we did belt testing. D-Boy got his black belt.
I saw.
Yeah, it's cool
Powerful
shit.
moment.
Very important moment for us. And I told him that, because he was reluctant to take his black belt.
He told me that moments before you walked in.
Well, the funny thing is,
I was like, how many black belts have you been crushing in comp?
Six of my friends texted me and said, Dylan doesn't have a black belt? Because one, Rich Lotta from Hatfield just texted me, he goes, Nick, I would have said congratulations, but I assumed Dylan had his black belt years ago. I'm like, no, he hasn't. He's been reluctant for a lot of reasons, which we can touch on. But I basically told him, I said, look, this is bigger than you. This isn't just you. This is about us. And you're clogging up the route for everybody behind you, because none of my other guys can move the black belt if he doesn't. We all know that. You're hurting the business because I need my normal in-house black belt, Joel Roberts, whose shoulders I built this gym on. He's got 3 kids. He's working in Philly. One of his kids is a baby. I haven't brought him back because of COVID and whatnot, but I can't rely on Joel for the rest of my life. He's talking about adopting a 4th child. So this is a busy guy. So I need my own. And so ultimately, but that was fun. But anyway, Jeff did a great seminar, and Jeff and I have always had parallel careers. And he came back to the house, and we shared a drink of whiskey together, and we told the old stories. And man, just the stuff that both he and I have been through to get here, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy what people did or tried to do to each other back in the day.
Yeah.
But the other thing we talked about was, and he even said this at the seminar, he said, what you're seeing here, him being in my gym, didn't happen 10 years ago. You went to another gym? Fuck you.
That's mutiny.
Well, you can come back once. We'll let you back in once. And if you ever decide to come back again, I'll be surprised, because we'll beat the piss out of you to the point that you can't, and now it's not like that. And I think guys like, Andrew Cockle and you guys and D-Boy, and particularly the guys down at 10th Planet in Bethlehem, have really spawned that cross training's okay. It's okay to go.
I will say that for sure. like in my personal experience, right? Zach Edwards is where I got like the beginning of my like leg lock stuff. And at Valley, he was the one teaching leg locks on Wednesdays.
No,
ironically, I'm still learning leg locks on Wednesdays with Henzo guys. Ironically, like leg lock Wednesday is like a thing for me.
Well, and you know, and some of the guys are still weird about that shit.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
IBJJF just legalized reaping.
Well, I meant with the not sharing information. I mean,
100%.
I won't mention
definitely.
any names because I love most of them, but I you know. The group picture, I can't be in the group picture. Why not? I can't be seen here.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. You're a grown goddamn man. Take whoever it is that's telling you can't be in the group picture and slap him in his face.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
We're all adults here.
This is cute. I mean, what we do is cute. It's fun. It's nice, et cetera, et cetera. But let's not lose track of this stuff, guys. You know, let's not lose track of you're a grown man and you control your own destiny, your own life. I mean, I'll give the jiu-jitsu guy and the baseball guy, the football guy, all the respect in the world, but you give me my respect too. Because, you know, what happens is, and this is where Facebook drives me crazy, what happens is we live in our own Facebook world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if you go on my Facebook and you look at 300 friends, they're all doing jiu-jitsu or they're all doing MMA. So if this is your world, you think everybody knows who, you know, this guy is or that guy is. Let me guarantee you, my friend, you can walk out onto this street right now, grab somebody that, you know, grab anybody off the street and say, you know, and I don't want to use, I'm trying to think of a name, I won't offend anybody, you know, use Gordon Ryan.
Dude, Gordon or
no
John
idea
Danner.
who the hell you're talking about.
It's so funny.
Well,
this weekend,
he's the world's best submission grappler. He's the world's best what? So it's not even they don't know him. It's like they don't even know what the
they're
fuck
not
we
in this
do.
world at all. It's crazy,
you know,
man.
it is such a microcosm, and it's getting bigger. Now, if you say Conor McGregor, sure, they know who Conor McGregor is. If you say Matt Hughes, maybe they know who Matt Hughes is. If you say Mark Coleman, they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So you know, we lose perspective on we're still a minority, folks.
Yeah, 100%.
We're a really, really, really small minority.
Yeah, fraction of a percent of the population.
Fraction of a percent, you know, et cetera, down the road. I mean, that's what we are. And guys lose track of that. And they think that these guys are stars. I told this story on Saturday. I'll never forget Tim Sylvia back in the day when D-Boy was a little kid. I got a picture of D-Boy with Tim Sylvia out on the boardwalk. And we got a picture with him. And we went to lunch and we came back and he was still out taking pictures. And I said, geez, Tim, I said, I really appreciate it. It must be a pain in the ass for you. You must deal with this all the time. He goes, no. He goes, the only reason I'm dealing with this is because I'm standing in front of the boardwalk hall and my picture's on the poster. He goes, like, where I live, nobody knows who the hell I am. They just point at the tall guy and go, who, you know, I mean, like to me, we all knew who he was.
Yeah.
He's like, no, Nick, I never get recognized like 90% of the time. He goes,
it's so funny.
I'm an MMA fighter. I'm not, you know, I'm not whatever.
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of star.
star.
That was, you know, that was 18 years ago. So I'm sure for the guys at the top, it's a little bit different now, but I'm sure it's not much. I mean, I'm sure it's not much. I mean, how many MMA guys are walking down the street? People going, "Oh my God, that's so and so." Yeah, one or two guys are saying, "Oh my God, that's so and so."
Yeah.
So,
well, I think a lot of people must have that too, where you know they have their passion thing, and you know they have their own isolated Facebook kind of situation as well.
Equestrians, swimmers, snowboarders. I mean, they all have that world that they live in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
So, yeah, I mean, they all have that world that they live in. And the problem is that social media makes it appear as though everybody's in that world. Because I picked up my wife's phone one time just to see it. There's like, nobody in a gi, nobody in a ring, nobody in a cage. I'm like, wait a second. The whole world doesn't do this, you know? You know, nobody with the obligatory group shot at the end of training. Look how many guys I had in my gym. Oh, all right. You know, that's the equivalent of look at my, you know what, and see how big it is pictured these days.
Yeah.
You know. So I play the game too. I'm not going to lie. But.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, to touch back on the cross training thing, because we're all so passionate about this, you know, fraction of a percent of the population's activity. When you see a guy like out at the bar, I remember like there was a guy, I believe he trains at an Alliance gym or something, and that's far from me. Like I've probably never stepped foot in an Alliance gym, and I've been in a lot of different gyms. And I maybe know like a guy, maybe Andrew had probably fought like one of the guys in his team, but it was one of my girlfriend's friend's boyfriend. And at the bar, like, on paper, it's like, oh man, like we're supposed to be arch enemies because our coaches had fought. But I was like, and it's probably not even like his coach. It was like his coach far removed.
It's a brotherhood.
Another gym. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, you do jujitsu. Oh, like we're best friends now.
And imagine that 12 years ago. Where because like right now, if you go into any major bar, particularly in this area, you're going to see somebody that trains. Yeah, whether you know them or not, somebody in that bar trains. That wasn't like it 12 years ago, man. 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, if you were at Disney World and there was one other person that trained, or you saw one guy with fucked up ears, that was a unique experience. Yeah. You know? Like, the early UFCs were crazy. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I was at 1, 2, or 3. I'm talking 20s, the 30s, and the numbers. What are we at now? 200 billion or something?
I think it's like 240, 250.
I know, but that's only because they don't count the other ones in between. Jesus Christ, there's a UFC. And that, that's crazy. When the UFC started, man, it was an event because it was 4 times a year. You knew everybody on the card, and you had like 100 people. I can remember UFC parties in my house. Now it's like I don't even watch. This one last weekend, I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable about this sport, and I can name one guy on the card. And that was Shogun. And who the hell wants to watch him fight? I mean, I know he's only in his whatever, but in MMA years, he's 106. Yeah. It's like Vanderlei Silva's only 41 years old. Vanderlei Silva's like 112 in MMA years. He's been doing it for so many years, his body's beaten up. So whatever his chronological age is, and most of the Brazilians lie about that anyway, because back in the day, Marco Ruas wouldn't even tell you how old he was. It would say age unknown.
Oh, that's so funny.
So, but yeah,
why is that?
I don't know. Ruas was just into this thing, man. If you watch UFC 8, I think it is, when he won. Yeah, King of the Streets, unbeaten in 400 street fights. And age ? Yeah. Wouldn't tell his age. So it was
like who's the guy that like is Kimbo Slice, I think.
Kimbo
is he's the one that's like undefeated on the streets, and then he did professional fights.
Yeah, well, Kimbo, different story. Yeah. Kimbo Streets fights are documented. Yeah. Marco Ruas, I know a lot of people got mad at him back then but they always used to, Tank Abbott came out as a pit fighter, and Paul Varnes. These guys used to make up disciplines. I mean, Christ, Chemo came out with the cross, claiming to be a black belt and this, that, and the other thing. He never fought in his life. Now he's a tough guy, but they all made it up. But Kimbo was a different story. Kimbo was that was a freak, man. That was a freak. Yeah, that was a freak. That was a tough guy, man. I mean, you watch some of those bare knuckle matches back there. Well, what's his name got his start with them? Masvidal.
Oh shit! Yeah,
he fought on Kimbo's backyard shows. And,
that's crazy.
What's his name? A lot of those guys did. Chuck Liddell has a couple of Vale Tudo fights back in the day. Bruce Leroy had a couple of Vale Tudo fights out there. So if you watch some of these guys, these are fighters, man. Yeah, no doubt. I miss the old UFC. I miss it. I liked the freak element.
And just like how it was a bigger event, and just like it was just like it was a strange
thing
wait. Almost.
You couldn't wait. I mean, it was like, I'm sorry, you're getting married what day? I'll send you. That's UFC night, Yeah. We're going to be there. And you waited and you waited. And then it went underground. And that's really when I started going and attending UFCs, when it was off TV. And Tito was carrying the sport at that point in time, which is why I've always had a respect for Tito, because I again, lecturing, we would not be where we are without Tito Ortiz. Yeah. Because when John McCain, may he rest in peace, was got us thrown off TV and off cable, and nobody was presenting, it went completely underground. We're talking, I think, in the 30s range in terms of the numbers, UFC 30 or whatever.
The iteration numbers.
Tito Ortiz was the only star around, man, and he carried this thing. So people say, "Oh, Tito sucks." Well, you may not like him, but I guarantee you, without Tito Ortiz, this sport doesn't get through. It doesn't get through. It doesn't last. He carried the sport. He was the marquee star.
Yeah.
And he was the only one getting any public recognition back then.
Yeah.
And
what year was that?
Oh, God. I'm going to say it was, and people will say, oh, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Let's see. I opened my gym in 2004. So I'm going to say it was 2002. 18 years ago. 18 years ago, yeah. Yeah, it was when he was fighting Evan Tanner and guys like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago. I mean,
yeah, that's long before I was interested in UFC at all.
Well, you were probably 4. I mean, you know.
10,
yeah. I mean, you know, yeah, it was long before most people were interested in it.
Oh, shit, man.
But
my favorite martial artist at that time was Jackie Chan.
Yeah. Well, that didn't even show your age because I didn't even know who Jackie Chan was. I knew who Bruce Lee was, but
yeah.
That was a different thing. But yeah, no, those old shows were fun. They weren't in the arenas that you see now.
Yeah,
they were in
like a boxing ring.
Well, I'm saying they were in the. But I'm saying in the UFCs were in the Taj Mahal. So they weren't in like before they moved to Boardwalk Hall. It wasn't a 15,000 seat capacity. It was more like 5,000 seats, and the cage, you could walk right up to the cage. I mean, basically, and it was just a different feel, and every single person in that room trained, whether they trained seriously or whether they trained like I did or whatever. There wasn't a person in the room. There were no families. There were no women there. There were no children there, except for D-Boy, which is always a freak show because people used to take his picture.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't believe there was a child at the UFC. Now, the last time I went to a UFC live was for my friend Jimmy Heddes when he fought Brandau. And unfortunately was winning the fight before his ear exploded and almost fell off his head. Yeah, it was a horrible, horrible thing. He was doing very, very well. And Jimmy's one of the great guys in the business. I was shocked. And I told him this the other day. He was here and I told him, I said, I'll never go again. First of all, it was all families and children, and it was like going to the circus.
Yeah.
Nobody there I saw looked like they trained. Nobody, and it was just like a public thing. Second of all, I was in a seat where, I mean, he was literally this big.
Yeah.
Because I was 10,000 rows up, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So I won't go live anymore.
Man, that's so interesting that you mentioned. Like, I'm just thinking of other things that are like this. And you know what Ninja Warrior is? Mm-hmm. Dude, I remember I used to be so into that in high school, back when it was in Japan. And it was
D-Boy
just like
was
this,
into that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
He used to try and do all that stuff.
Dude, but it was so obscure back in the day, right? Like, it was like this like weird thing that was on like a really weird channel on Comcast. So you had to really like look for it. And now, like now that it came to America, it's all
pasteurized
it's all plastic.
Yeah, they pasteurized it. They made it not fun.
I'm not into it anymore. It's all Hollywooded out.
It's exactly right. It's almost the same way with professional wrestling. I was a huge pro wrestling fan.
Same, man.
Loved it.
That's probably what got me into combat sports.
And
honestly.
Now, if it wasn't for the fact that Matt Riddle's in it, I haven't turned on a professional wrestling match in years because it is so pasteurized and it is so, I don't know, it's clinical almost.
Yeah.
I mean, they got
and Matt Riddle trained under you.
No, never under me.
Well, out of here.
Yeah, Matt was a fortuitous find, I will call that. We crossed paths at a very fortuitous time for both of us. He had just he had just gone to ESU on a wrestling scholarship. Yeah. And came in to train at my gym one night because he lived right down the road, and then ultimately lost his scholarship and needed to find something to do. And, I think he would credit me with saying, well, we should try out for Ultimate Fighter. And, picked him up that morning, and it was a snowstorm, and he got, oh God, it's snowing out. And I said, let's get in the car, let's go. And the rest was kind of history. Ended up making Ultimate Fighter, and I always say making Ultimate Fighter when it mattered. Yeah, and that's not disrespectful to season 97 or whatever we're up to, but when you were on the first 7 or 8 seasons of Ultimate Fighter, it mattered.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who you were. I mean, it was, you were a household name in our business.
Yeah.
In our business. I look at the first couple seasons and the names are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And ended up staying in the UFC for 7 years. And when that didn't work out for reasons that are pretty well publicized, came back to PA and he said, I want to try pro wrestling. And him and D-Boy got in the car and took him down to a pro wrestling school in Philly and did a tour of some places and off you go. 4 years later, he's on Survivor Series,
Yeah.
So, but that, again, getting back to the freak comment, that's a freak.
Outliers, man.
That's a freak, man. That's not going to happen to anybody else. And people are like, well, Matt Riddle. Okay, yeah, that's one. That's one guy.
Yeah.
That's one guy. And again, look in the mirror. Look at yourself and look at him. If you don't see a difference, get a new mirror because there is a difference, So, but yeah, that was a fun aspect of the sport. But yeah, it's changed so much, and I just think it's getting. The UFC is just getting carried away. I mean, how many fights can you watch?
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Well, I guess like under the umbrella of the UFC, right? Because you have like the CFFC and like all these.
Yeah, but CFFC is different because CFFC is creating these guys, and CFFC is really taken over the local scene. So I'll never. I don't think, well, particularly with COVID, the local market's no longer saturated. It was. I mean, at one point in time, you had CFFC, you had PA Cage Fight, you had Maverick, you had this guy, you had that guy. Everybody and their brother. I promoted MMA at the beginning of the sport in PA, along with a number of other disciplines. And what was happening was you were just regurgitating these same fighters over and over and over again.
Yeah, under a new umbrella.
And the sad part about local MMA, now this is where CFFC's really done a good job because they have taken what is his name? The guy, Ring of Combat. Ring of Combat. I forget the promoter's name. You'd know him if I met it. Ring of Combat had an amazing history out of Atlantic City of getting guys into the UFC.
Oh, wow.
Their champion,
I didn't even know.
Their champion went to the UFC. I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom. CFFC starting to get there. Basil from down at Balance in Philly just won the CFFC title last week. I don't know him well, but I do know him, and he's always been a very nice young man to me, and he's an amazing athlete. He's going to go. I mean, there's no doubt he's going to go, particularly now that the UFC's bringing in more people. He's going to go. So I think those promotions are important, but it's just in the UFC itself. I mean, it's every day. You got the Contender Series. You got Dana White looking for a fight. You got a numbered card. I couldn't believe that was a numbered card the other night. I thought it was one of those freebies.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to put it on anyway because I had no interest in it. But I'm like, this has a number. This is you're charging a headliner for flyweights. I mean, that, I don't know. I guess the purists would say, well, then you mustn't like fights. Well, I do, but I like to at least know 3 of the guys on the card, who they are, and I've seen them before. And for me, it's always been more fun when I have a personal connection with the guys on the card. I mean, I always tell a story. We had one card, my guy Joe Roberts fought 3 guys on that card.
Oh, shit.
On that UFC card. So, it's like Aljamain Sterling and Jimmy Rivera were fighting each other. He fought both of them. I think Miles Jury was on the card. We fought him, So it's always neat when it's like, wait a second, I have some connection to this guy. We fought this guy, or I met this guy, or I trained with this guy, or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's always more fun if it's just, Vladimir so-and-so from Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
Okay, great. It's 2 guys fighting. All right.
That's funny. Man.
It's hard to get excited.
I'm just kind of thinking about your tenure in this, right? When, and maybe this isn't an answer you can give, but I'm just curious because I'm thinking like, for me, like WWE, like WCW, that was like how I got interested in combat sports. And back in the day, you'd see like 1 or 2 like females and stuff. Now there's a lot of females that are on a lot of these big promotions, be it jiu-jitsu or like UFC, like with MMA. Like where do you think that kind of started? Like, when did girls start saying, like, oh, I can beat up people, too?
Be very careful how I answer.
Yeah. I'm just curious. Like, I'm just curious from like, someone who's been in it and seen it grow. Like, where did you start seeing the trends start?
I saw it early, and I think there's two different things there. So I will probably, whoever sees this can call me a sexist if I want, but I'm not. I think there's a big difference between women training grappling and women doing MMA. For me personally.
Yeah.
My daughter is now 23, and she's trained since she was 4 years old. Did jiu-jitsu. In fact, we used to play a trick. Guys would come in and, when D-Boy was starting to get a bit of a reputation as a kid, they'd come in there and say, I want to train with the D-Boy. I want to try the D-Boy. I want to try the D-Boy. And I'd say, well, yeah, okay, you can go with D-Boy, but first go with his little sister. And if you get past her, then you can go with D-Boy.
That's funny.
And nine times out of 10, they couldn't get past little sister. We were all wrestlers. They would shoot in, she would guillotine the shit out of them, and they'd send them home.
That's funny.
So next time, you don't worry about D-Boy. So I think the women grappling has always kind of been there. We've never had a lot of it here, but I see like down at Mike Padilla's place, they have a ton of gals.
Yeah, definitely.
And Mike does a great job with them. And 10th Planet always has a few.
Grace is like a huge name right now.
Well, yeah, Grace is a freak. And I mean that in the greatest sense of the word. Nice young lady, and truly on the freak level. She just is. She's the best there is, and that's incredible. But the women's MMA, it all changed with Ronda, because that changed Dana's perspective on it, because Dana was infamous for saying you'll never see women fight in the UFC. And then he turned around, and when Ronda came around, she had the right element, so he started putting on. I don't like it. I don't like women's MMA. I just don't like it. Not disrespect. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're not talented. I'm not saying they don't have the right to be there. For me, it bothers me to watch women punching each other in the face.
So it's just like a temperament thing. Yeah.
Look, we all like to pretend there's no difference between the sexes. There is.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit if this face gets punched and my nose gets bigger or my scars get wider or whatnot. I mean, where am I going?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same argument I have with my daughter all the time, with tattoos. She goes, well, you let D-Boy get as many I said, look at him. Who cares? Who cares? I said, you're the most beautiful thing in my life. I don't want you covered in head to toe in tattoos. I don't care what he does.
That's funny.
Because look at us, and so if that's, I don't think it's sexist. I think it's more protective. I just, it bothers me to watch
it makes sense,
women
right?
get punched in the face and bleeding and nose broken and this and that, because we are an appearance-based society.
Yes.
And women, right or wrong, are often judged on their appearance more than men. I mean,
for better or worse.
Look at Mick Jagger, one of the great ladies' men in history, one of the ugliest guys to ever walk the face of God's earth. It doesn't work the other way,
That's funny, and it makes a lot of sense, right? That perspective that you don't want to see something beautiful destroyed. That's an interesting perspective.
To me, fighting, and I'm not talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm not talking about karate. I'm talking about fighting.
MMA.
I'm talking about fighting. Forget
contact,
MMA.
Yeah.
I'm talking about fighting.
Yeah.
I never saw the show, but there's a series recently, Vikings or something like that.
Yeah, it's on like Netflix.
On A&E or something like that.
Maybe, I don't
something
know.
Like that. And I just saw the one commercial, and he said, and the father Viking says to the son, what does a man do? And the little boy looks up, he goes, he fights, and that's true. To me, that's always been true. Men fight.
Yeah.
Men fight.
What do you think of these, like trans athletes, like the people who are male and then they transfer to become a
difficult.
female, then they do the MMA. That stuff kind of fucks me up.
Yeah, it's clearly not. Well, you have to go back longer than that, though.
Yeah.
The original world famous trans athlete was Renee Richards. Renee Richards, I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm not, actually.
If you're a fan of ESPN's 30 for 30, I think they have one on there. Renee Richards was Dr. Renee Richards. He was an ophthalmologist. And he was a middle of the rung professional tennis player who underwent a very early sex change operation, like one of the first in American public persona, and then played on the women's circuit. And did much better on the women's circuit than he had done on the men's circuit because the guy was like 6'2".
Yeah.
Thin, but very strappy and whatnot. I mean, it's obviously a difficult situation. I mean, I am probably the most liberal human being on the face of God's earth. My guys in this gym will tell you, I joke about everything. I joke about gender, I joke about race, I joke about religion, I joke about everything because to me it is all so absurd and I'm so liberal. But it's different to say, how do you feel about it in terms of, hey guys, do whatever the hell you want. I don't care if you sew a penis on your forehead. I mean, I don't give a shit what you do. And people are like, well, as long as they stay away from me. I don't care if you don't want anybody to stay away from me. I don't care about anything, guys. People get so weird. It's like, oh, the gay guy's not going to hit on me. Well, trust me, I've seen your face. Nobody's hitting on you, gay or straight. You'll live with it. But when you get to whether or not they should be able to compete at the same level, I don't know. That's difficult.
Yeah.
But honestly, how often are you coming into it?
It is rare, right?
And I guess my answer is live and let live. I mean, you're going to cry because I don't know. Yeah, it's so rare. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, who gives a shit? It's like, I think you had asked D-Boy during the interview with him about, performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Well, the story I always tell is I don't know shit about sports. I've never seen a football game in my life, a complete football game of any sort, professional or otherwise. I've probably never seen a professional basketball game on TV or otherwise. I've maybe seen 5 baseball games in my life. And so I know nothing about sports. But having been, before MMA came along, I was in the bodybuilding community for 15, 20 years. So I know a lot about PEDs, as they call it, or performance enhancing drugs. And I can remember back whenever it was, 10 years ago or whatever, when the Sosa and McGuire were having their home run season. And I would sit down at my in-laws, and they all know a lot about sports. These guys are real sports fans. I mean, my one brother-in-law knows everything about sports. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, this guy's, the 2 juicers. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, yeah, they're juicing. He's like, what do you mean they're juicing? I'm like, obviously, they're juicing. What makes you say that? I'm like, well, okay. The stadiums are the same size they've always been. The balls are the same they've always been. The bats, and we're talking about for hundreds of years. And this year, these 2 guys are breaking every record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's different? It's called juice, guys. And it was the same thing with Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
Oh, Lance Armstrong had cancer. He won 7. Like, yeah, well, he's juicing. He's EPOing or he's doing something. What are you talking about? He can't be juicing. Why not? He had cancer. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? He had cancer, so he can't be doing drugs. Yes, he could be, and he is. Well, how do you know? How do you know? Because the Tour de France has been around for 200 years, and nobody's ever managed to win it more than like 2 or 3 times, and this guy just won 7. And 5 years or 8 years ago, he wasn't as good. That means he's juicing. And again, I don't care, but let's not be ignorant. So, like, oh, John Jones juiced. Uh-huh. So did everybody else. No, they did. Okay, fine. They didn't. I'll just stop there. If you think there's any top athletes at the top of the game in professional sports today that haven't touched or done something, you're out of your mind. Christ, Ben Johnson, Carl Lewis, like, oh, Ben Johnson juiced. Come on, Carl Lewis, you juiced. The man got braces at the age of 30. Why do you get braces? Because you're doing HGH and your teeth are spreading out. I mean, it's just what happens. It's what happens. So I get frustrated when people talk about, well, John Jones is bad because he did this or that. Okay. John Jones got caught. They're all doing it, man.
Yeah.
And if they're not all doing it, then 90% of them are. Same thing on the jiu-jitsu circuit, guys.
Yeah.
Come on. You see some of these guys, their gis come open. It looks like a human anatomy chart underneath there, and it's like, come on, guys, come on. Again, I'm not faulting them. I don't care. It's all fair in love and war, but let's not kid ourselves that Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a huge argument, right, for a lot of these trans athletes is that when they go from male to female, that they've grown under male like testosterone and, you know, hormones and chemicals, that's basically like having steroids as a female. You know what I mean?
No.
But for how many years leading up to that before they made the transition?
Look at the triath athletes. Marion Jones, wasn't it? Gorgeous, beautiful, busted. You know, one of the most beautiful athletes you've ever seen. I think that was her name. She was like the top woman track athlete in the world. I mean, built, gorgeous, tall, juicing, man, juicing. I mean, it's just a reality.
Yeah.
And the reality isn't, here's I think the reverse of the reality.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people got good because they juiced. That's not true. The problem is when you get to that level, if everybody else is doing it, you've got no choice.
Yeah.
So these guys would be, you know, and that was always the thing in bodybuilding too. Yeah, you're not going to win Mr. Olympia because you juice. But you can't win Mr. Olympia if you don't.
If you don't.
No, you still have to have the genetics.
Yeah.
I don't
and
care.
the hard work too.
Well,
like, I mean, it definitely matters. Yeah, you can take steroids all day if you're not putting in.
But the genetics comes first.
Yeah,
I mean, genetics still comes first. I mean, it's just still the first element to me of any athletic endeavor is genetics. If you don't have it, you'll never get it.
Yeah.
If it's not there, it's not there. And believe me, I know it's not there.
Yeah.
I've trained as long as my son has. Longer. And look at him and look at me. I'm horrible. He's really good. He got it. I didn't. You know, he got it. I didn't. People say, well, you started older. No, doesn't matter. Just never had that type of athleticism. Never had it.
Yeah.
Never had it. Never had it. So, you know, some people have it, some people don't.
Yeah.
And then you get the guys that have it. But yeah, so I don't know. I just find the performance enhancing drugs discussion interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think people are so naive.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you know, I mean, you're talking tennis players, track. I mean, like I said, Lance Armstrong was a great example. Well, how can he be doing pets? He's only 140 pounds. Well, yeah, he's not taking steroids to get big. You know, he's taking growth hormone. He's taking EPO. He's taking steroids. He's taking cortisone. He's taking all this shit. And finally, he comes out and admits every single one of them. It was like the who's who of performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
He used every single one of them and the blood doping and whatnot. Again, the reason he did it is the reason most of them do it, because he got to that level and found out everybody's doing it. If I don't do it, I'm going to get left behind. So you have it in jiu-jitsu too, and you have it in MMA. Yeah. So that's why when we're going back to your original question about John Jones, and people say he can't be the GOAT because he did drugs. Come on, man. Then who can? Then who can? Yeah. Hey, look at the guys that got busted. Tim Sylvia got busted. Hoist Gracie got busted. You know, I mean, these guys
Anderson
are not
Silva even.
Yeah, these guys. Yeah, these guys are not, you know, Mr. Olympia. These guys are little skinny guys. A lot of them. Yeah. They're not doing it for muscles. They're doing it for recovery, because that's the bottom line. To train at the level you need to train at to be at that level, the body just doesn't recover that quickly. And that's what I think most of those drugs are for, is to help the body recover faster. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah,
I mean that's like what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think they should be allowed in like pro sports, like at the top level?
Absolutely.
Even MMA?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like why not?
If you have devoted your life to this sport and you are a professional, then absolutely. Because to say you're not going to let them in is saying we're going to reward the guys who cheat the best.
Yeah, man.
That's it. We're going to reward the guys that cheat the best, and the guys that aren't that good at it and get caught, we're going to punish. You can't get it out. It's getting the genie back in the bottle. You can't do it. You're never going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to get rid of it. So, yeah, you should absolutely just not worry about it. Just not worry about it, you know? And you know, I mean, bodybuilding, of course, has gotten to freakish levels now.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. When I started in bodybuilding back in the I don't know, late 70s, you know, a guy maybe did a little bit of D-ball, you know, a week or two or a month or two before the show. Nobody stayed on full year round. I mean, if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, to use the great example, if you Google Arnold Schwarzenegger off season, he looked like you. You know, muscular.
Yeah.
You nice physique, but not like the Arnold that he was 4 months later. And he was honest about it. He said, yeah, we only cycled up when we were getting ready to compete. Now these guys with the insulin and the HGH and then this, that, and the other thing, and they stay on it all year round. And they're going up to 320 pounds and cutting down to 305 at 5'7". I mean, Jesus God, no wonder they're dropping dead like there's no tomorrow.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, they're dropping dead. It's amazing. But should they be allowed to do it? Should they be allowed to do it? Of course they should. They're professionals and they're grown human beings. Let them do whatever the hell they want. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
And you don't go into the sport unless you want to do it.
Yeah.
I
think honestly, like you mentioned, if you want to be at the top and manifest the full potential that you're capable of, you're gonna have to do that at the highest level.
And if the price is right, if you're making, I don't know, it was one guy that always bitch about Barry Bonds. I mean, what was he making? $25 million a year?
That's a pretty penny.
Then yeah, I'll stick a needle in my ass and risk a little liver problem for $25 million for a year or two. Sure, I will. But nobody going to pay me to do that because it's not about the drugs. It's about the fact that he was great before that, and it just made him greater. So I don't know. It's a hot topic, and people have disagreed with me for years on it. But I really just think people got to open their eyes, man.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like the genie's out of the bottle. What can you do?
Yeah. And they're always coming up with something new that you can't test for.
Yeah.
So again, if you say, this guy didn't pass, and just let them all do whatever the hell they want. Let them do whatever the hell they want. Who cares? They're professionals. Let them be professionals.
Yeah.
It's like the WWE steroid trials. I mean, come on. Everybody's doing it. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then they're that one or two freakish athletes in the world that aren't doing it.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, the super high outliers who just have it in the blood to be the best without it.
And they come from different places. They're not all from genetically gifted families. Some of them just pop up. Mm-hmm. Some of them just pop up. I mean, using Matt for example, Matt Riddle. I know his family well. The rest of his family is not particularly athletic, not athletes. Just there he is.
Yeah.
There he is, It's just one of those anomalies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. I think one of the things I try to be aware of is, like, in athleticism and just anything else is, how fragile your mortality is at the same time, too. You know what I mean? Like, you can be the Olympian, you know what I mean, built perfectly and then enhance it with drugs. You can still die in like a car accident. You can still get shot by some random dude on the street, You can still die in a fire.
Like going back to JFK Jr., you can die in a plane crash. Or who was the big basketball player with the helicopter?
Or Kobe.
I'm not familiar with him. I'm not familiar with the sport, but I understand he was a big deal.
Yeah.
He was a big deal. And had it all. Private helicopter. Shit goes.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's humbling. It's humbling. But that's, we get, this society has always had a weird fascination with athletes.
Yeah.
And the weird obsession. I mean, it drives me crazy. And again, I know I'll get a lot of shit for this. To see a grown man coming to work on a Monday morning, physically and emotionally devastated because some fucking guys who he doesn't know, who have no connection to him or his city or his team in the world except for the fact they signed a contract, lost a football game yesterday. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Your world is screwed up because some $18 million a year pituitary case lost a game.
Yeah.
Well, that's my team. How is it your team? Let's break this down. Okay. You've never met anybody on the fucking team, right? Never. Okay. So you have no personal connection whatsoever. You've never played this sport yourself, correct? Right. So the fact that you dressed up in a little outfit and sat in your house with eye paint on and a jersey with another man's name on is strange to me. But let's go with that anyway. So they're your team because, They're from your city. Really? Let's look at the roster. Let's take the Philadelphia Eagles. How many guys, and I don't know the answer, but I'm willing to bet 0. How many guys on the Philadelphia Eagles grew up in Philadelphia, live in Philadelphia, were born in Philadelphia, or have any connection to Philadelphia whatsoever other than the fact that they ended up getting drafted or signed a contract with that team? Probably 0.
Or like a very small percent of them.
Look, you want to go root for your high school football team? Okay, I don't like football, but I understand it. You probably know all the kids. One's probably your son. That's cool, man. I'll support that. You want to root for your college football team? Okay, college spirit. They're probably dickheads. They're probably walking around campus like their shit doesn't stink. They're probably bullies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why do I say? Because I know a lot of football players. That's why. Okay, but don't come into work on a Monday and tell me your team lost and you're upset. Get the fuck out of here, man. Take control of your own life and go accomplish something, dude.
Definitely.
You know, you want to watch the game, that's cute. I watch MMA all the time. I cheer when something exciting happens, yeah. But if this fighter loses or that fighter... Now, when my guys lose, oh my God, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm the worst.
But they're out of your gym.
They're my guys. They're my guys. I trained them. I fed them. They lived in my home. I have a connection with them. You know, going back to Jimmy Hedges. When Jimmy Hedges lost it, I was devastated. Why? Because I know the man. He's a great man and a great friend. And I was there specifically to watch him, you know?
Yeah.
So it was devastating to see him winning and then not lose, but to have it fight stopped on a cut. I was screaming at the ref, et cetera, et cetera. But to just watch some anonymous guy you don't know and then my team and my team and my team. And then they get into fights with other guys about it. Oh, your team sucks. Oh, don't talk about my team.
The loyalty is insane. I agree, man.
Oh my God. I just don't get it, man.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. I'll never understand it. I can't stomach it. It drives me crazy.
Man, what do you think it is about like combat sports and like big sports like that? Because it's not popular to watch like if you like, and I'm saying this because I honestly have like firsthand experience in it now. Since I've been doing these film jobs for different organizations and schools, they don't care, like the culture of the school doesn't care so much about wrestling or maybe even if they have a fencing team or something like that, right? They care about their football and maybe their basketball.
And football, maybe basketball.
What is it about?
Depends on where you come from.
What is it about those sports that are the ethos of the American man?
I think they're pumped into you from the day you're born that this is what it's about and this is important, and that these sports are the epitome of this, that, and the other thing. I've always liked the fringe sports. My son and I went to the first X Games that was in Philadelphia many years ago when he was a little kid. I always loved those weird kind of extreme sports or this, that, or the other thing. But that's what's interesting about the Olympics. You know, you don't have football.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, basketball is kind of a joke and whatnot, but you don't have football. You have those other kind of sports that get noticed, which is nice. And maybe someday we'll be in there.
Yeah.
Maybe someday we'll be in there. When I was in bodybuilding, I always talked about bodybuilding making the Olympics, but of course the drugs is what kept them out. And I don't think bodybuilding is a real sport in that sense. It's an activity. It's not a sport.
I could agree with you there.
But MMA, jiu-jitsu, maybe someday we will be there. I don't know. I've never understood it, and obviously I am in the very, very, very small minority. Growing up in America as a man, looking like I do, you know, bald, tattooed, you know, bulky or whatnot, and knowing nothing about sports has been a huge handicap. Because guys will just come up to me and start talking about shit. I'm like,
yeah.
And they think I'm lying. This is a good story. You may or may not appreciate it, but it's a very true story. I've told it before. My first night in Baltimore in 1983, I went to school in Baltimore for 2 years. And one of the first nights there, I went into a bar, and there's a guy sitting right down from me where you are. And man, this place is just a buzz, just a buzz. I mean, everybody's like freaking the fuck out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell's going on? So finally, I leaned over. I said, dude, what's going on? Am I missing something? He goes, well, I think they're excited because I'm here. And I said, who are you? He goes, I'm Cal Ripken Jr. And now you may not know that name, but in Baltimore in 1983, Cal Ripken Jr. was apparently the captain of the Baltimore Orioles, who were going to be in the World Series that year, et cetera. So he was the biggest. I'm trying to think in local lore, an equivalent. I mean, Derek Jeter, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a name. I think that's a baseball player. that was the level that Cal Ripken Jr. was. I mean, he was like the most famous. And he goes, I'm Cal Ripken Jr. I said, I'm sorry, who's that? And he thought I was bullshitting, because here was this kid. I mean, at the time, I was 18 years old, dude. I was in shape. I was competing in bodybuilding. And he's like, I play for the Baltimore Orioles. And I said, and that is baseball? I had no idea. I had no idea. And the dude looked at me like, he's like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, man. I said, I'm sorry. I'm not being a dick. Because he thought I was being a jerk.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not being a dick. I don't know who you are. I'm not sure who the Baltimore Orioles are, but that's great. Congratulations. And I'm like, got out of there, because he's a relatively big dude. I didn't want to kill him. So I go back to my apartment, and I went in, and I'm like, dude, I just had the weirdest experience. And the guy's like, what? And I was in the apartment with like 10 other guys.
Yeah.
Most of whom were college scholarship athletes. And I said, well, I met some guy, blah, blah. I said his name. They ran to that bar. Now, of course, he was gone by the time they got there. And to this day, they don't believe me. They don't believe me. I'm like, how could I make that up? I don't know who that is. Like, I wouldn't make that name up. I just don't know who that is. But, so that's how much of a handicap it's always been for me. I don't know anything about this stuff. But MMA, you name a guy from, Christ, King of the Cage from 12 years ago, and I'll tell you exactly who he is and what his record was and what he ultimately went to jail for, or whatever else happened in his life.
That's epic. Oh, let me see. Look, we just some people commenting. Can you just move the mic a little bit more in front of you? Like, why don't you move the stand so it's like just more comfortable for you, like when you're facing me? I'm just concerned because like you're coming over here sometimes. Yeah, that's cool. Man. So let's change the topic up a little bit. Great rants. Like we went down some nice rabbit holes there, but how has COVID, like in the quarantine and shit, how has that affected like owning a gym? And maybe even operating like like you're a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
You specialize in divorce law. How has it affected that? Because I know a lot of people in my personal life have broken up. Maybe they didn't get divorced, but definitely boyfriend and girlfriend split up.
On the professional end, I was busier during COVID than I've ever been in my career.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely busier. I mean, your relationship can go one of two ways during something like that. Luckily, my wife and I have been married as of yesterday, 29 years. We enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, just having the house and just hanging out and training together at the house and cooking together. We really were like on a second honeymoon during COVID. It was fantastic. We enjoyed it a great deal. And part of the reason we enjoyed it was because this place was closed for 2.5 months. The gym. So 5 nights a week I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Or she wasn't here, because she's here a lot too. She trains, of course, as well. For the gym business, I feel bad. For the guys that made a living or make a living off of this, I think it has to have been devastating. No doubt. I'm very fortunate. Not only don't I make a living off of it, I don't make anything off of it. Anything I do make, I put back into it. And I was very fortunate that we downsized when we did, because I could never carry the old building. So here, my overhead costs are nominal. But yeah, we shut down and we still are not back. I mean, I lost 35 children's students that I still haven't brought back and won't bring back until I figure out where this world's going. Yeah. And I get a lot of flack about that. Well, when do you bring the kids back? I don't know. I don't know, man. When this shit settles out, we'll look at it. Yeah. But until then, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's devastated. A lot of gyms have closed. The guys in Philly, I feel bad for, because now they're going to operate at the risk of getting shut down again. Yeah. I mean, I personally used to work at a gym in Philadelphia, and I lost my job at the beginning of this quarantine due to, COVID. Sure. So I can speak, directly to that. To your point about the fire,
because of that situation, I would never have thought that I could chase down the rabbit hole of doing film and my podcast professionally. And now I'm making it work.
Well, and what were you doing at the gym?
I was a manager of like a parkour gym.
Okay.
Parkour is like what deep.
Well, I know what parkour is. Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Well, and I'll tell you. I mean, again, taking opportunity. You're very talented at this, and it's very intriguing.
That means a lot coming from you, man.
And you stand a much better chance of making a living and making a name for yourself doing this than you do running a parkour gym or managing a parkour gym, particularly if you're managing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is why one of the reasons I wanted you to come out today, and you know, I want to talk to you about your business when we're done with this, because I want to find out what you're doing and what we might be able to do, because this business always intrigues me. I think it's a neat way to get information out there, and I am thinking about the MMA business. You know,
yeah, of course.
I think there's a lot of neat stuff that can get out there, but yeah, I mean, COVID's devastating, and people politicize it. As anybody that knows me for 5 minutes know, I never discuss politics. Mm-hmm. No one knows what I think or feel, and no one ever will, because you would all be horrified. And that's both sides. I guarantee it.
That's awesome. You'd be horrified.
But to behave as though this doesn't exist, to me, is ignorant. And that has no political basis. Well, I don't care if you're an elephant, if you're a donkey, or what you are. I don't care if you're the biggest Trump supporter in the world, or if you think the man's a scumbag. Don't care. Don't care if you buy the whole thing. But obviously, there's something going on, man.
Yeah.
There's something going on. People are testing positive all over the place. I know friends. You know, my daughter was out at MSU. A lot of her friends, you know, and people. I've got 2 guys in my gym. One kid's 21 years old, man. I love the kid. He wanted to come back yesterday. I said, nah, give it another week, brother. You know, because he's cleared now. But, you know, he said it was horrible. It was horrible. So, you know, let's not act like it doesn't exist. And so what we've done is we've come back very small. We maintain very small classes. We take everybody's temperature. I don't advertise. I'm not accepting new members. I mean, 1 or 2 here, 1 or 2 here or there.
Yeah.
But that's really it. We're trying to keep classes down to like 8 or 10 people.
Yeah.
And that's enough for us.
That makes sense too. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine as well, where jiu-jitsu culture in general, we're doing a really intimate activity, right? Like we're trying to choke each other to death. Like I'm breathing in your air, and like we're sweating all over each other.
Skin funk wasn't enough. Now we have to worry about this shit too. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Like we, as a culture, we're very clean, and we're incubating each other's germs constantly. Like there are friends of mine that I'm closer to than like my mom, because I'm trying to choke the life out of them every week.
I often say I've spent more time between. Never mind.
Yeah.
You know where that one was going.
I got you.
But yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I tell guys when they come here and they want to grapple. I'm like, dude, you got to get used to this.
Yeah.
If you wrestled, you understand.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah.
But this is way more intimate. And that's why, you know, in terms of training, like I always tell the ladies, if you can, try and get a partner, because I won't train with ladies. I feel weird.
Yeah.
It's not sexist. I just feel weird. I think it's, you know, it's awkward for me. It's really awkward for me.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a safe way to feel. I personally, until I will find it a lot more difficult personally to approach someone, like let's say let's an open mat at another gym, unless I know the girl, or maybe I know her boyfriend or something, or whatever it might be. I'm going to be way less likely to approach them than like a guy that I maybe don't know.
But I mean, also for me, I mean, 55-year-old man, it's just creepy.
Yeah.
It's just fucking creepy.
Nobody wants to be that way. And I've never said no. Like if a female wants to roll with me, I'm always down, but I tend to not approach.
Well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not good at grappling, but I'm 5'4" and I weigh 215 pounds.
Yeah.
And in my heyday was winning powerlifting competitions, and when I'm a fairly strong guy. These ladies are way better than I am at jiu-jitsu, but I'm 215 pounds, and at one point in time could bench press 325 pounds at 100 65-pound body weight. You know
What?
That's
incredible, man.
I can probably outmuscle a lot of, so it's like, what do you do? And that's my whole game in jiu-jitsu. It's like, I just try to
pressure. Yeah.
I mean, try and squeeze
on a small person. That's definitely an oppressive
grab
way to
something
roll.
and squeeze it really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's your foot, your head, your neck, or whatever. If I squeeze it hard enough, I'm hoping it hurts.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, so
you're so much like D-Boy. Your jiu-jitsu. He's just like, did you hear what he said about his goal is to just get as much damage off as he can?
Yeah. Well, he's different. He comes from the sport from a whole different angle.
I love it, man.
And the thing that's weird about him and that people don't recognize is that he's gotten as far as he has. He's never watched a video. He's never read a book. If I've brought him to seminars, he doesn't listen. And he rarely, if ever, has taken a class.
Yeah.
I know the guys at 10th Planet get frustrated with him because he won't take classes. He just doesn't learn like that. So everything that he does and everything that he's able to do, he's pretty much learned on his own or developed on his own, which I think is interesting.
It is.
And it's probably handicapped him to some degree. I mean, I think he could be better than he is, but it's an amazing talent to have created a lot of that stuff in his own head. And that's what's neat to watch with him. He kind of creates as he goes, and he's developed a style that works very well for him.
Yeah. Looks like you got some of your students outside waiting to come in.
Yeah, they got time.
Yeah, cool.
We'll give it another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get them in here.
Yeah, no problem. Let me ask a couple questions about just you are a lawyer, like you own your own law office. I just have like a couple questions on that. Like we obviously went down some great rabbit holes with MMA and stuff. Can you talk about like how COVID has affected that side of the business? Maybe give a vague like story or something.
My end, not terribly in terms of volume, but the way we do business is different. Many of the counties are now doing, and I'm hoping this keeps up. I'm hoping that something good comes out of that, and that many of the counties are now doing hearings and conferences by GoToMeeting, which is an incredibly convenient method. I don't have to travel to a courthouse. I don't have to sit in a hallway in a courthouse and wait my turn. I can pass those savings on to the client. They're not paying me to travel. They're not paying me to sit there. Basically, I wait in front of my computer, and the minute the thing comes on, I'm there, and I can work in my office. So I'm hoping that post-COVID, a lot of these courts realize that we are wasting time and energy dragging these people in from all over the place. Let's just do it that way. Yeah. Some of the guys are getting hurt by it. The guys that do a lot of trial work, jury trials, because they can't bring. My one partner does jury trials for criminal. Yeah, they can't bring in juries, so they can't do the trials. So the criminal system's getting clogged, there's all kinds of constitutional implications because they have to have these hearings done within a certain amount of time, but they can't. I mean, the courthouses were closed, and clients are funny. Like, I don't understand why this is taking so long. You don't understand why this is taking so long. The courthouse is closed. Well, what do you do when that happens? It doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know what you do when that happens. Yeah. We're making this up. I mean, it's never happened.
Yeah. How long have you been working in law?
30 years.
30 years, man.
But the courthouses have never closed in hundreds of years. Yeah. I mean, maybe a day or two for a severe snowstorm. Yeah. So it's not like just in my lifetime courthouses haven't closed for 2 months. It's never happened. Yeah. I mean, maybe during WW2. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. I don't think it ever was. So it's like, no, this doesn't happen. So none of us know how to handle it properly because it never happens. But yeah, I've been practicing. I passed the bar November, actually this month, November of 1990. Yeah. So that's a long time.
Yeah, that is quite a long time, I would say. Yeah. So what do you, what are some, like, 30 years in the industry, what are some like formalities and traditions that you could see like that are favorable that maybe someone outside of the industry like myself wouldn't guess at first, but then maybe something that, like you just mentioned, like going to the courthouse is like, that could go to the wayside for some of these things where GoToMeeting would be.
I don't know. I mean, law is an interesting business.
No doubt.
When I go on vacation or I travel, I carry one business card, and that says Nick Masington, owner-operator, Rat Pack Fighting Systems, MMA, because that way if I run into somebody at the bar who wants to talk about business, okay, we'll talk about that business. My wife knows, and she's very good at this. We never tell people what I really do because I don't want to talk about it. It's a stressful job.
No doubt.
There are some, just like MMA, there are some wonderful people in the law business. And there's lots of not so wonderful people.
Just like MMA.
There's a lot of pissed off people who apparently didn't get to go to the prom and spent their nights up in their bedroom going, I'll get you one day, I'll be a lawyer and I'll be better than the rest of you and fuck you, blah, 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 blah. And they haven't gotten over that.
Yeah.
So I explained to them everything. Hey, I went to the prom. I'm cool, man. I'm cool. I don't. I got to be careful.
Yeah, no doubt. Take your time.
I don't like any time that anybody thinks they are better than somebody else because of something they've learned or something they can do or something, etc. You find it in MMA, but not nearly as prevalent as you find it in the professions. We've all met doctors. Some of them are wonderful human beings. I have a good friend, trains at this gym. He's my doctor. One of the greatest guys I've met in many years. Love him dearly. Very humble man. I've met many that aren't. And I am a doctor. I don't give a fuck what you are, man. I don't care if you're the goddamn Pope. I'm a man. You're a man. You know what I mean? So the one thing that bothers me about the legal profession is that there are a lot of people in it, be they lawyers, be they judges, who I see, and they don't treat me badly. Yeah. Not at this stage of my life. You know, despite the tattoos and the persona and the earrings and the MMA and this, that, and the other thing, maybe they think I'm crazy, so they just let me alone. But I see them treating other people as though they're secondary or second class. And you know, you come to my house on a Saturday, you ain't gonna find Judge so-and-so and this, that, and the other thing. You're going to find, you know, the last UFC, I think the oldest guy in the room besides me was 19. You know, it was D-Boy was 26. Yeah. The other guy, they're like 18-year-old guys, man. That's who I hang out with. You know, that's who I like. And I enjoy their company. And I don't, it's not like I'm talking down to them or whatever else or whatever. And I'm with them, we're just friends. Yeah. And these are the people I enjoy being around. Yeah. And this is the business I enjoy being around. That one, it's a little harder for me. No doubt. I'm kind of more of a street kid. I'm kind of more, obviously, rough around the edges. I'm a straight shooter. I don't
say it how it is, kind of thing.
Yeah, I just, you know, I just don't think that what we do is that special. I think I'm good at it. Yeah, I think I'm very good at it.
Obviously,
I'm successful at it. But I don't know that it's that. You know, it's no better than the guy that came up with an air conditioning vent in my thing. I respect what he does more than what I do because I know how to do that, man. That's like, wow, my friend Donnie's coming today to fix my car. To me, that's a mystery. That's a mystery. How do you do that, man? I'm so impressed with the way you do that. What I do is just different, you know.
Man, it's so good to be humble too, with that in mind.
Oh, I didn't say I'm humble.
Yeah. I mean, but
I said I'm not cocky because of what I do for a living. I'm by no means humble. I'm very, very. You know, I'm very, very proud of things that I've done in my life, particularly where you're sitting. Yeah. You know, this didn't happen overnight, and this didn't happen easily. These guys put us through the fucking ringer to get to this place. I mean, I've told the old stories 100 times. I mean, at one point in time, we had so many threads about us on the internet, and I copy them and I post them now. These assholes won't last 6 months. These jerk offs don't know what they're doing. They've got a fake black belt. They're this, they're that, blah blah blah. I was getting death threats at my house. You know, from you're tainting the business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at that point, I had one member. Well, 16 years later, I think we lasted. Yeah. In fact, not only did we last, but I surpassed just about every single person. And I always like to laugh about it, half those guys ended up working for me eventually. That's so funny. So that's all cool, man. Yeah. That's all cool. But so yeah, there's no humility there. I'm very, very proud of what we've done. I just don't walk around going, I'm a lawyer. Yeah. I walk around going, I own Rat Pack. I do that. Yeah. That puffs me up pretty big. No doubt. That puffs me up pretty big.
Can you give can you touch on like a story that you've had from the law thing, just so we have like one example of like a good tale of the work? you can be vague. I know the industry probably has.
Well, I mean, it's a weird
stuff.
business. I mean, I really don't have, there's you see. Here's what I can tell you about the business that I'm in, particularly the divorce business.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about people. Well, no, I won't tell a tale. What I will tell you is this. Everybody says, because I've done divorce law exclusively for 30 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Figure it out. Let's say I do at a minimum 300 divorces a year times 30 years. It's a lot. It's a lot of divorces. So I've seen it all. So people always say, and this is maybe a good way to close this thing out shortly, you should write a book on divorce and marriage and this. It's not that difficult, guys. Well, I posted yesterday. My wife and I, like I said, we were 29th anniversary yesterday, and I love the anniversary posts on Facebook. People are so honest, I guess. It's like, I want to say happy anniversary to my husband. I know we had some really rough times, and I know, we've hurt each other in the past, but we've made it through. But I was like, what the hell is that? That's a romantic post. I mean, it's like, I know you cheated on me 6 times, et cetera, et cetera. And so I posted yesterday that I'd like to wish my wife a happy anniversary. I'd love to tell you guys it's been a rough road and we've had our ups and downs and blah, blah, blah. But quite frankly, it's been pretty smooth sailing for 29 years. Yeah. And we've really we don't fight. We don't, so how do you survive a marriage for 20? It's not that difficult, man. Just don't be an asshole. Don't cheat on your spouse. Don't be disrespectful. My wife and I have the slow dance rule. You so much as go to a bar and slow dance with another gentleman who is not directly related to you by blood, and we're done. And we've had that rule for 29 years. Like we would never, we'd never even think about, flirting, being weird. I mean, just weird. It's kind of a silly example. It's just not that difficult, man. So just saying. So here is my advice to people on how to avoid divorce.
Yeah.
And I mean it.
Yeah.
Look at the person you're going to marry and ask yourself if there's anything about that person that fundamentally bothers you. And if the answer is yes, don't get married, because I can guarantee you that's going to be the thing that ends that relationship. So the classic, well, he hit me once or twice when we were dating, but, well, she cheated on me once when we were dating, but, well, I knew he had a drinking problem, but, well, I knew, she had a heroin issue, but. If there's a but, if there's any major but when you're walking down that aisle, turn around and get the fuck out of there and don't do it. And because that will ultimately be the thing that ends your marriage. And because it will not go away, because people do not change. People don't change after the age, I'm convinced, of 6. You are who you are. Yeah. You're not going to change. So those qualities don't go away. And I think people don't do it. And, again, going back to Facebook, I mean, now it's like, husband and wife break up next week. Oh, I've got a new girlfriend. Here she is. Blah, blah, blah. Looking, shove this down your throat, et cetera, et cetera. Keep it to yourself for a little while.
Yeah, really.
Let it ferment for a little bit before you bring the kids in. Yeah. And before you're posing as the new happy family. And, oh, look, I've met the most wonderful human being. Because look back at that person's Facebook, and 6 months ago, there was a whole other set of kids in that picture. And 6 months before that, there was, I mean, I've got one guy around here. Jesus Christ, man, it's like every month it's some very attractive young lady. It's like, oh, look, I got the greatest boyfriend in the world. Honey, can you look back at the past Facebook and see the other 19 women that have been, with it? I mean, if you're cool with it, I'm cool with it. But
it's interesting too. Like, just we can definitely start closing up here, but maybe give me your sentiments on this, right? So there's who Jordan Peterson is?
I do not.
Yeah, he's like a clinical psychologist, really intelligent man, and he has some really powerful advice that has helped me in my life and definitely in my relationships. But one thing that he said is, if you're in a relationship where you always have to be right and the other person's always wrong, and maybe certain things, maybe you're the breadwinner and you push that down the throat of your significant other, eventually you start building this gap where you're a winner that's dating a loser. Right. And now that poisons the relationship. and that can fester the
Sure.
resentment.
It becomes a project, not a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And I think the simpler way to put that is a great relationship is one where both parties consider themselves lucky to be with the other person. You've not had the benefit of meeting my wife. Hopefully you will. We are two incredibly strong personalities.
I imagine.
Yeah, she is probably far more social than I am.
Yeah, the beach personality.
But I mean, we compete for the spotlight all the time. But the neat thing about both of us is I think that, we each feel like we got the better end of this bargain. And I think that's important because you're exactly right. Once you feel like you're better or this person's lucky to have you, then it's not a relationship anymore.
Yeah.
It's a project, or it's a warped relationship. If both people feel like, Jesus Christ, I'm really lucky. I can't believe this woman stayed with me for 30 years, or I can't believe this. That's a relationship. And I think that's what I've managed to find in life. And again, it's not luck.
Yeah.
It's not luck. I mean, we were 25 when we started dating.
Yeah.
We were 32 when we had our first kid, or 31 when we had our first kid. It wasn't like, let's have kids. Everything was calculated, and we were poor, man. We were as poor can fucking be. I mean, we would sit up at night if one of the cars had an oil leak. It'd be like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to get the car fixed? Oh, Jesus Christ, the world's going to come to an end, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My daughter's christening, my family members came over and said, what a great idea. You took all the furniture out of the house for the party. I said, no, we don't own any furniture. We had no furniture. We had nothing, 29 years later, we're doing okay.
Yeah, man. Those hard times build that can.
They weren't hard times. They were great times.
Yeah,
they were great times.
Yeah.
They were great times. I mean, they were amazing times.
Yeah.
Happy then as I am now. Money doesn't help, So okay, now we have more houses, more mortgages, more cars, more this, more that.
Scales up. The stress scales up.
But I don't think we're happier than we were then because we were happy then, and we're happy now. So
man, that's awesome. That's a great way to end it, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.